This is the Affordable Housing Growth and Development Trust Fund Board meeting on Friday, September 8th, 2023, being 9 a.m. We'll proceed with the meeting. Please note that in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anybody is taping this meeting and to please make their presence known. Okay, nobody is taping the meeting. All right, roll call vote to call the meeting to order. Laura Schufelt?
Present.
Wendy Northcross?
Present.
Mark Milne?
Present.
Andy Clyburn?
Present.
Mark Els? Present. Okay. At this point, we invite the public to make comment relative to the trust fund board meeting. So if we have somebody from the public, please identify yourself and you're welcome to make comment.
Can I go?
Hello, yes, welcome.
Hi, I went to town council meeting yesterday and finally heard about this meeting. I am a resident in Gordon Stars district off of Independence Drive, and I believe that we need immediate housing. Whatever can be done, the sooner the better. I live in an income driven unit right now, but I'm over the income cap, so I'm going to have to move. There is nothing available for people making between $45,000 and $60,000 that you can call the realtor and say, hey, is there something available? So my key thing is that I feel that you guys can do to help. I know that you may not be able to get units available immediately, but maybe working with realtors to eliminate the broker's fee. That might be something we can do. Maybe making sure we can do co-living and whatever we can do to make housing more affordable, because the average worker, nurse, teacher, nonprofit coordinator cannot afford to live here. So the people that you need for business, like your doctors, your nurses, your educators, if they have to cross the bridge to get to work every day, why would they want to continue to come to work in these communities? We need to make the community welcoming to everyone. That's all I want to say is we have to make it welcome to everyone. And anything that I can do as a community advocate, I would love to help you guys with, whether it's going to communities that you guys can't get into. Anything I can do, I would love to help out.
Thank you. And can you please identify yourself for the record?
Oh, sorry. My name is Asia Graves. And I'm a resident of the Hyannis Barnstable community.
Thank you, Asia. And so Asia, I'm gonna make sure Jillian and certainly Elizabeth Jenkins continue conversations with you, but you know that our office is always open as well. And we really appreciate you taking the time to join us and listen. And certainly, I'm sure if you have time to do it in the future, your active participation will add value to what we do, certainly. So
I would love to join if there's a position open. I would love to come every Friday. I work home on a laptop, so I'm available whatever you guys need help with. And I would love to get the younger generation involved, because a lot of us are dealing with housing insecurity. Maybe getting them more involved, we can get things done.
yes, that is our intent as well. All right, thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing none at this time, I will move to topics for discussion. First topic is approval of the minutes from August 4th, 2023. Have y'all had time to review them? Yes, Wendy Northcross, please.
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion relevant to the minutes of August 4th? Seeing none, I'll move to a vote. Laura Schufelt?
Yes.
Wendy Northcross?
Yes.
Mark Milne?
Yes.
Andy Clyburn?
Yes.
Mark Els abstained because I was not present at the meeting. Thank you all. Okay, topic number 2, a continued application. This is a $500,000 redevelopment funding to Jake Dewey for Linnell Landing to renovate an existing 3-family building at 50 Yarmouth Road on a 0.39 acre parcel and add 3 new buildings with 8 new 1-bedroom and 4 new 2-bedroom units, including one inclusionary at 65% AMI and one affordable at 80% AMI. We've had an initial presentation. This was referred forward. There was intended additional discussion between our legal department and staff and the proponent. So at this time, Jake, I'll ask you to speak or your representation, and then we'll come back to trust members for a discussion. And I think we'll ask Charlie McLaughlin for an update. And but 1 second, please. Laura Schufelt, I apologize. Did you
Yeah, I just wanted, I'll wait for my turn.
Yeah, I just wanted to get an update from them on that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, I think I have some further information, so
Okay,
But-
wonderful.
we'll get the update from them first.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jake, is there anything additional? And then Charlie McLaughlin?
So we did meet Attorney McLaughlin, my attorney Bernie Kilroy, who's also on the call. We met middle of last week, and then we met again with staff, Charlie, Elizabeth, and Jim yesterday or 2 days ago, I guess that was. To try to button up taking the trust comments from the last meeting to incorporate them. There was a document circulated. I'm sorry, it didn't get circulated until this morning, it sounds like. But it I think the longer document is maybe not as important as long as it incorporates the things that are in the smaller document that's a little more sort of bullet point driven there, that we were trying to sort of check the boxes of the request of the trust there. And welcome further discussion related to any of those points and additional points.
Okay, thank you. Charlie McLaughlin?
Thank you, Manager Els. I took my charge from the last meeting to sit down, and we did have a productive discussion, particularly on areas of in whatever amount might be approved as a grant, because this is pre-construction and we don't have something on the ground to physically secure our advancement. We need to know that if the project doesn't go forward, that we have set up a mechanism that would protect our funding and allow us to recover it. And key to that discussion is, and we have this list that was prepared by Attorney Kilroy, the bullet point list. Key to that was first and foremost, for any funds that are advanced, are they going to be sequenced into the construction loan mechanism that the lender, who apparently is going to be Rockland Trust, to mimic the advancement of funds that we did on the 850 Falmouth Road project, and that we would, upon application, have a mechanism to review the application, look at an architect's certification, et cetera, and make sure that the funds that were remaining undispersed were enough to cover the entire cost and then some of the anticipated future construction costs as the project was being to be built. And the purpose of that is, with these certifications, that we would either disperse from day one a small portion of those advancements out of the trust funds in conjunction and leaving Rockland on our authorization to mix it in with their construction advances. Or the other alternative that we discussed was frankly to hold off until the project is either certified by the architect as substantially complete, or even more rigorously holding off until we have certificates of occupancy, and then advance whatever funds the trust might approve at the end of the project, albeit on a commitment to do so, so that the pro forma that the bank is relying on, the developers relying on, et cetera, is in place. They know that the funds are coming, but would have to await that. The proposal that came back to us was to advance the funds from the get-go as part of the construction loan apparatus. So that's an open item that if we went forward would need further discussion as to what the trust's comfort level is. When do we want those funds, our funds, advanced on a project? Either way, I think we can get there, but it's really a trust call how you want to handle that. We did, I think we're in agreement that there would be deed restrictions in perpetuity for whatever affordables come out of it. We did have a good discussion on the need to put a termination on the time for our commitment, and the proposal is to have our commitment in place for 24 months. And if the project, obviously going back to this question, when are we going to disperse funds? But that we don't want to be out there under any circumstances without trust approval for more than 24 months. And if the project is not going to meet that schedule, then we need to know it and make a decision whether our commitment is still going to be out there for something longer than that or not. So that's a decision point we're going to have to make. We had an agreement in principle, at least, that there would be an affirmative fair marketing plan that will be, and Laura, I know, will want to observe or have input on what the elements of that are, that if we're going to advance funds on this project, how the affirmative fair marketing plan and the reporting and monitoring and at what levels will need to be assured. That was from a past experience, something that really needs to be tightened up. So when I sent out an email yesterday that Laura's comments had not been included, that is at least one of the subjects I know she'll want to address. Annual occupancy and lease and rents need to be reported to us over a period of time. And certainly for the affordables, that's in perpetuity. But going back to probably one of the most important discussions that I came away with, that we had with the developer and with Attorney Kilroy, was the question of the request and the extraordinary level of the request for 2 units that would produce 2 units was presented by the developer, I think correctly so, in the sense that the 500 is necessary to make the entire project go and to create market rate affordables, apropos of the comments that the public speaker just offered a few minutes ago. But we need to have something on the table from the developer that would be acceptable, found acceptable by the board, as to what type of limits there would be on market rates to assure that we are getting the entire bang for our buck, if you will, with regard to putting some sort of limit on the market rates for. And how does that? Is it 100% of AMI? Is it 110% of AMI? Is it for the duration, perpetuity? Is there a time limit on it? Those questions are open right now. Excuse me, let me kill that. Sorry. And so that's an open-ended question right now that I think we still need to have either further discussion privately on that or through the board, but at today or a future meeting. One other item that what did come up is the question that was correctly posed: what's the status of local preference, and what, at least for the affordables, and perhaps on a wider basis, is there any ability contractually? There's no good statutory basis to. We're out in uncharted territory, but as a matter of contractual negotiations, we can create obligations on matters such as local preference, even for the market units and so forth. That's an open discussion that has not yet been had. I don't think there's any significant. I gather, I say it hasn't been had, not in the detail in terms of what the mechanics would be, but I will leave to Jake the question of whether he's comfortable with some sort of a local preference on there. So that those are the major touch points that we've arrived at so far, and there are obviously some open questions here. We did go through the grant agreement itself, and there are only a couple of items. The model that we used was the 850 Falmouth Road model that did get a lot of attention and from Ruth and myself, and we thought it was a pretty good model to start from. And Bernie has spent some time on it. There's a couple of cleanup items in it that I mentioned in our meeting. I won't bore you with the housekeeping on that, but the general construct of the grant agreement is I think pretty near done, depending on what additional input we might have either today or in a future meeting from the board in terms of direction. So, and also I need again to defer to Laura. I think there are some additional comments she wants to offer. So that's a summary of where we're at. I don't think we're ready for a vote on this yet. Whether there's I think anything that is an open item, whether you choose to direct us to go back and have further discussions and bring a near finished product and a couple of open items, particularly the dollar amount of any commitment that we might be prepared to make. I certainly we need additional work on those items and direction from you at some point. So,
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, so now I'll go to, we've received our update from Jake and Charlie, and we'll go to members of the board and Laura, please.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Chair Els. I gotta kind of back things up. I have gone through the finances that were presented closer since I found the time to do it before this meeting. And according to the pro forma, the sources and uses that was presented that showed a gap of 500,000 was using the construction loan as the debt. If you look just a little further down, the permanent loan is actually $551,000 more than the construction loan. And therefore, it doesn't appear that the 500,000, that there is a gap of $500,000. The 551,000 difference reflects the developer fees contribution. So at the end of the day, once the permanent loan is closed, which is after stabilization, there is no gap, and at least according to the numbers that the developer has given to us, what looks like is needed is a $500,000 bridge loan for construction. I'm happy to discuss it, but it's on page 30 of the application under financing. The construction loan amount is 2.6 million. The permanent loan is 3.2 million. That's I,
Can I respond to that?
Okay, sure, Jake.
I think there was an updated pro forma that removed the developer fee. The developer fee is something that I was instructed by DHCD on the HDIP program to make a program qualify for HDIP credits, because it's a qualified expenditure. It's not, I don't really understand it, but honestly, but that was how in the former projects, that's how we were able to qualify for some. It's sort of an accounting mechanism. There's actually no funds there. But so there was an updated pro forma submitted, because Elizabeth brought this up before, that's very straightforward, that it's the construction cost and the loan, the permanent loan is basically the same as the construction loan. There's no change. There's no add value. Yes, the property does have to appraise as finished value at more than the, at least at the construction loan plus the margin. But I thought there was an updated, and I can send it around again, where we had removed the developer fee and made it very straightforward that it's, construction expense, acquisition costs to a total cost, and then the loan based on that at 75% loan to value. But I can try to circulate that if that's in question.
Okay, Laura, was there any follow-up?
I'll take a look at that without the developer fee. But that's basically profit, so it's a standard, even if it's loaned back to the development. And so if the construction loan is so you're saying that the permanent loan is $2.6 million, not 3.2.
2.6 is just the cost of the construction. You have additional cost of the parcel as well.
Okay, so let's get that performer in front of trust members and give them the opportunity to review. I certainly want to hear from other trust members, but I did just receive information late yesterday and first thing this morning that I would like time to review, and hopefully that will lead to a more meaningful discussion with my fellow trust members relevant to how to proceed on this. So but I'll stop there, and sorry to jump ahead of everybody. Does anybody else have comment? And then I'll come back to you, Charlie.
Yes, sir. Just one quick observation in our meeting earlier in the week, and Jake can update us, but I don't know that an application has been submitted yet to Rockland. There have been apparently discussions. I'm not aware of any commitment, and any commitment in what amount. So that's an open-ended question.
All right, before we go off there, I had opened it up to other trust members. So Wendy Northcross, please, and then I'll circle back, Charlie. Go ahead, Wendy.
Sorry.
Sorry, Charlie, I just had a quick question. The construction loan's 2.6 million, and how much was the permanent loan on your amended submission? Jake?
Hold on, I'm just looking here.
And I would just echo with Chairman Els that getting documents, last minute before the meeting is a challenge for me to thoroughly go through, but.
The total loan amount with property acquisition is 2,775. The total project cost is 3.7. So I'm putting almost $1 million of my own money into the project.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Jake, thank you for the response. Andy, please.
Yes, sir. I was just gonna basically echo what Wendy said. We got that late yesterday afternoon, looked at it. I think it was on the right track. And then we got a follow-up from Charlie saying that actually Laura's comments haven't been incorporated. And then literally after the start of this meeting, we got another email with the most recent. So we haven't had time to fully digest this. I think that it's on the right path. I think that the robust conversation that we had was good at the last meeting. Obviously, $500,000 for what appears to be two affordable units. There was much concern over that being perhaps precedent setting. I thought we all agreed that the rates of rent that the applicant is presenting kind of as a small A for the other 12 unit or the other 13 units are something we desperately need. So if there's a way to get there, that's fantastic. However, in that first draft, I was reviewing it last night, there was much in there about the 2 units. There was very little about the other 12. So I would, I'm trying to find a way in my head, and I am not the expert. Thank goodness we have Laura. But if there is a way that we could guarantee these type of rates for the other 12, I think that I would be in all day on that because we desperately need them. And that's why on 850, we went above what we typically would because they were at a very low AMI. In this case, my logic for going above is we've got 12 units that we desperately need, and maybe they're not capital A, but you're coming in with rates under $2,000. They're not available. We had Asia here earlier. We had a gentleman 2 meetings ago at town council that came in that waited 9 years for a voucher, got a voucher, told 90 days, couldn't find a place. It doesn't do anyone any good to get a voucher if there's not a place. And I really think perhaps there's an opportunity for projects like this to get us units where vouchers plus some other program can get us there. So I'll get off my soapbox, but I think we do need a little more time to digest the most recent. But I'm still hopeful that we can get to a yes.
Okay, any further discussion at this point from trust members? No. Yes, Mark, thank you.
Yes, I agree with all the comments that board members brought up. Same concerns, and I like the the comments that Attorney McLaughlin mentioned about perhaps taking a closer look at the limits on market rates and local preference built into any grant agreement that we bring forward should be fleshed out as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Schufelt, please.
Yeah, just a couple comments. I think that if we kind of belts and suspended the market rate units with some discount off market or based on where they are with an index like the available rents now, where they are AMI, and then increase the income limit so that it's like at 120%, but the rent's at somewhere, right now, they're somewhere between about 90% AMI. And so if we go to whatever, but if we do it both in the tie agreement and in the grant agreement, we may have the opportunity to have somebody enforce it and look at it. That's my concern, that you can put whatever conditions you want in a agreement, but if nobody's going to look at it after it's signed, it's moot. So that's one thing. I still want to see the updated financials. And then on the issue of local preference is a fair housing concern. So we have to be, aware that the maximum you can have local preference is 70% of the units, but that's only at initial lease up. After that, it goes to a wait list that is a mix of local and non-local. So I just want to make sure that we follow the law and are welcoming as well as accommodating to our residents. So, thanks.
Okay. All right, trust members, any further comment? Yes, Wendy.
All right, well, it sounds like we're closing in on agreement. Again, I just worry about time is money, and you heard about the need for housing today. And this, I guess my question back to Jake is, if you get a yes, you said within September, October, if you get a yes today, September, October, you'd have shovels in the ground or whatever, but I'm hearing we're probably not going to take a vote on this today, but I'm just worried about the timeline. So if somebody can give me an indication of what they think the timeline would be, make sure that that still works with Jake's plan.
All right, so I guess Charlie?
Just one observation, and that is that I think the role that any tax incentive program would play is, as I understand it, vital to the pro forma. And so I defer back to Jake and to Elizabeth, particularly with your permission on that question. I don't know that there's an application pending yet on any tax incentive monies. So and so not sure that I see the project ready to go until there is a resolution on that question. The only other item I will throw out there, and it's not something we can or should be waiting for, but on the November ballot, it's just been certified, is the question of rent restrictions, rental amount restrictions that are going to be voted on by the populace in November. And the much used term that is, I grew up in Cambridge, reviled in Cambridge, but conceptually it now starts to, it certainly has got a lot of traction, and that's rent control. So I don't know how that'll impact these discussions, but it probably would be reflective in some way. We can still do it contractually no matter what happens in November, if there is a formula that we can all agree upon, apropos of Laura's observations. So there's a lot to talk about here, and but there is a path forward, but it begs some of these open-ended questions that still need to be resolved. So.
Laura, do you have your hand up, or are you?
I do. I just have one other question while we're still on this topic. And I'm wondering if the construction contract has been signed, if that's a solid number yet, or if it's still estimated, and if it's estimated, who estimated it, and how confident you are in those estimates.
Jake?
I'll answer Laura's question first, and then if I can, just a few comments, responses to the other questions. It's nothing is signed permanent at this point. Anything's, continuing to float, whether it's rates, construction costs, all that stuff. The same builder that did my last two projects is intended to do this one, and we've been spot on with budgets the last two times. Obviously, I can't promise that that's going to happen again, but I'd like to hope that we've built in a little bit of a cushion here with a contingency in the budget that we'll be able to stick to that budget. But obviously, the more time that goes on, everything's just getting more expensive. It just seems the way that things are going. So yeah, the sooner it gets signed, the better. And same thing with rates with the bank. I think to Attorney McLaughlin's comment about, Rockland, the project's
calling USAA. Your call may be monitored or recorded for verification.
So Rockland's ready to go. The application's sitting there, but without these funds, it's a no-go. So if the funds fail, I have to decide what to do with, either rework the project as a smaller scale project or shelf it. So that, obviously, yes, that takes time. I'm not going to pay for an appraisal if we're already dead before we start. If we get the funds approved or get a conditional approval from the board, I would order the appraisal and push go as fast as I can. I would say every time we push off to another meeting, it's probably adding a month to the start date of the project. And obviously we've had, tepid winters the last few years, but if we have a nasty winter, it'll delay the project further. I was really hoping that we would have, foundations in and stuff before we have hard freezes. But it's starting to look like that's not going to be able to get done. Other sort of in response to Assistant Town Manager Clyburn's comments, I brought up in the meeting, if we deed restricted these all of the units as year round, that's one way I think to create a market, a market rate attainable unit. And I had a great conversation with Elisa at HAC, asking her for any ideas of ways that we could restrict these units to how do we sort of make sure they do fall in that fill that void of attainable housing? And her comment was, Jake, what you're building is naturally occurring attainable housing. The level and the spec of what you're building, someone that wants to pay $3,000 a month or can afford to pay $3,000 a month for a 2-bedroom is going to go look for something closer to the water with fancier finishes and more amenities and things, more of a luxury apartment. What you're building is to try to, make it work for someone that is a local workforce type person and living off a local income. So we were trying to figure out ways to do that. And the local preference, again, that was something I threw out there. Elizabeth did comment back that we do have to follow fair housing. So it is sort of a sticky spot there to be in. But that's always my intent with pretty much all of my units are year-round housing for year-round people working in the community. And then I guess one question to put back on the board, we had talked about, lottery for the initial lease up or, just seeing the cost of it getting crazy. Can we use Ready Renters List for that? And I think that I would just want direction from the board if that's something we can do. I think that was it. Were there any other questions? Wendy, did I answer your question sort of regarding timing?
Okay, Laura, please.
Just to go back to Ready Rental List, Ready Rental List with a new project does a lottery first. So in order to have the units on the SHI, there has to be a lottery.
Okay.
That's what I wondered. That's what I sort of said. And then I was told otherwise. And so I've gone back and forth because it looks like doing a lottery is going to cost about $15,000.
So.
Yeah.
So to summarize, time is certainly always a critical factor. And I don't want to, belabor something that can't be achieved. So it sounds like we're going to take this under advisement. Jillian, do you have a summary of what we have all just discussed? And can you identify some of the critical items that need to be addressed so that once we've answered them, the board can make a decision relevant to Mr. Dewey's request?
Well, certainly I will attempt to summarize what you've said here today. One of the things I'm hearing is, I guess I'm hearkening back to a developer agreement, which is possibly separate from the grant agreement that would outline some of these other features. Perhaps the piece about the lease, the year-round leases and things like that wouldn't necessarily be in the grant, but might be in the development agreement. And I guess I just throw that out there as something to think about. I don't know if that's, Elizabeth and I and Charlie and I haven't had any conversation about that, but that's a thought.
Yeah. Well, I would just like to make sure that as expeditiously as we can, we've identified a list of items that once we have them, we will be able to make a decision, barring some unforeseen circumstance, we'll be able to make a decision one way or the other for Mr. Dewey. That's really what I'm trying to get us to. And then get it in advance of the meeting. Enough advance that we have time to review. Yes,
And
Wendy.
so, I'm sorry.
I'll come right back to you, Julian. Yes, Wendy.
So the things that I've heard are, we need decisions about whether or not we advance our funding from the beginning as part of the construction loan process administered by Rockland Trust. Do we have a deed restriction in perpetuity for the affordables? What is the timeline of our commitment? Charlie suggested maybe 24 months. Some of these things, I think we could decide now, but some might need more documentation. We also needed the affirmation of a fair marketing plan. We needed annual occupancy percentage and lease amounts on the affordables reported in perpetuity to the town. I don't know if that's got to be embedded in some agreement somewhere. We need market rate limit assurances from Jake, it sounded like. Charlie wanted some clarification on that. We looked were the local preference on the affordables. It seems that that's already been answered, that only 70% are allowed upon the initial wait list. The fair housing law issue that Laura clarified. Jake clarified the construction loan versus the permanent loan, but we need to see that in writing. And that the market rate at a discount perhaps needs to be itemized in a grant agreement or something in order for us to kind of really push forward this amount of money for the total project. That's what I see, and then that's a punch list that I have. I'm sure Jillian has similar notes, but I think that, you know, we shouldn't push this off an entire month. So I guess my question back to you, Mr. Chairman, is how much time is this really going to take?
Well, I am not doing it myself. I can't answer for Mr. Dewey or staff. So I would have to perhaps take that under advisement and get back to you. I'm sure that, well, it's going to be more the detail, I would imagine, in the discussion between staff and Mr. Dewey and his attorney to see how many of these we can get close to or deliver so that a decision can be made one way or the other. And, you know, then obviously in my mind, you know, housing that's affordable is a priority. So if for some reason this doesn't work, once we've worked our way through all this, are there other options here so that there's some form of a project to move? But perhaps that's a separate application, separate project. But yeah, I suppose that broadens things to a point where we may not get to a timely resolve. So back to it, Wendy. I don't know how long it'll take Mr. Dewey and staff to go back and forth to get those answers. I'd like to see a minimum of 48 hours before the board meeting to give us fair time to review. And, you know, that's a general, that isn't this project. That's just in general. I know sometimes last minute happens. I get that. Okay. But in general, yeah, we should try to get it to everybody in fairness so we can all take a look, have the same information, and then have a meaningful discussion when we come to the table. Okay, and if we can't, then, I mean, I had asked Attorney McLaughlin that specifically, not to put him on the spot for something that was undeliverable, but for that reason last time, to make sure we have stuff in enough advance so that we can make good decisions. So at this
Is there any way
point,
we could vote on some of this? Could we vote on like the 24-month timeline commitment? Charlie, is there anything we can vote on today that would help nudge this along?
I think there's, in terms of recommendations, I think the list that you have just summarized really are the hot button items. And given the sensitivity to time in this meeting, I think we might be spending time on less important items by voting on it today and having a discussion. I think a comprehensive package is probably the route to go.
my question as chair here, I'll take my I'll take my authority as chair. Mr. Dewey, you willing to continue this dialogue given what you've heard today?
I mean, I guess I'm getting a little bit frustrated that I don't feel like we're moving in a direction. You know, I think to Wendy's point, like, can the board just discuss and make some decisions? Because I don't think we have direction for Charlie what to put into the document. Is the direction to say 24 months? Is the direction to say the funds advance with construction? Or are we just going to come back again and just discuss it again and keep pushing it out? I mean, I think Wendy's right on that let's, you know, say what it would be in what the board would prefer to go into the document. So Charlie can actually make a document. I mean, we spent a lot of time trying to put something together, but it doesn't seem like it got us anywhere. And so I don't want to go another 2 weeks just to come back again to discuss it all again. let's try to,
Well,
if Charlie, if you have time to put
Hold on.
together what you're proposing, if you put together a draft, send it around, we can comment and say, yeah, sure, that's agreeable. I mean, I think I'm being relatively flexible. I need you to tell me what you guys want. I think that's where we're at right now.
So wait a minute, Charlie. Wait. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate that. That's why I asked you. Laura Schufelt, then Charlie, then Andy. Laura?
I think until we have a instrument that can lock in more than 2 units and therefore lock in an amount, I don't think it is worth voting on anything else, because at 2 units, only 2 units, $500,000, blows up our criteria, our precedent, and our fiduciary responsibility point, in my opinion.
Charlie. Thank you, Laura. Charlie?
I think Laura said exactly what I was going to say. There are 2 elephants in the room, and if hypothetically there was at 500 or something less than that, a willingness to move forward, it obviously is a dramatic increase, and we've had this discussion outside of this meeting, but with Jake and with Brady Kilroy, and I think Laura's comments are directly on point. We've got to find some way to be creative and address the question of market rates. What are they? What's a fair index, et cetera? But if you're being asked to, if this 500 in the ask is necessary to make this project go forward, then we've got to get something beyond what just 2 affordable units are, and put some sort of a mechanism in place for your consideration. So I'm certainly willing to spend that time and the next, I would think the next 2 weeks, but whatever the pleasure is, we could have something that meets your timelines, Mr. Wells.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not setting the timeline. I'm more concerned
Yep.
with viability for Mr. Dewey's project, to give him an answer, yes or no. I believe that sometimes things take a lot longer than we would want them to, but I'd rather get to a good answer than to not get to a good answer. Yeah, Wendy?
I'd actually like to make a motion to include in the final document a few things, and fully realizing you could vote this down, but I'm just in the spirit of moving this forward. I'd like to make a motion that we agree that we can advance any funds, the final amount that we agree upon. Any funds would be advanced from the beginning of the construction process, is overseen by Rockland Trust, their construction loan process. I'd like to set the time limit of our commitment for 24 months. I would like to set a market rate limit assurances from the developer at 120% of AMI for in perpetuity. I think the local preference is handled by current law. And that's my motion.
Could I don't know procedurally if I could do this, but Andy, you had your hand up and I was going to recognize you after Charlie and I forgot. I apologize.
Yeah, I thanks for that, sir. I was going to respond to Jake. Jake says, what do you need to know? My response is, I got an email after the start of this meeting today with the current document that I haven't reviewed. So I cannot definitively tell you what we need. Hopefully it's a week. Hopefully it's 2 weeks. I don't know, Jake. I'm trying my best to get to yes, but your frustration is not solvable. We can't do any more with the information. If I don't get information before this meeting, I can't tell you what it is that we need from you.
So if Jake, I'll come back to you. So back to Wendy. Wendy, am I missing? I mean, I heard what Laura just shared with us, but what you've done, I think, is pick from today and past discussions and tried to identify some factors that you don't think will vary as we move forward. So therefore, if we can agree on that, you set them aside, And now we focus on those other items, either known or unknown, that we're gonna need to sort through to get Mr. Dewey an answer. So
Yes.
is that really what you've done in your mind?
Yes, I'd like those to be an updated draft agreement that comes back to us for final approval.
All right, so, board members, do you think that there is value to what's been identified, worth a vote of the board so that Mr. McLaughlin can incorporate those and Mr. Dewey can know some of those knowns as we move forward with the discussion? Laura?
Couple things, the advancement during construction, we can agree to that, but if Rockland doesn't, it's moot.
Right.
And the other thing, the 120%, I was saying the 120% was the income limit. The rent for 120% one bedroom right now is $29.83, and I wouldn't be comfortable with that. You know, yeah.
So, so Wendy, it sounds like with the potential elimination of one of your items for future consideration,
Mhm.
and then with kind of a change, maybe to add what Laura said relevant to financing, we might have a couple of knowns here.
Mhm.
Is that reasonable?
Yes.
Laura, is that reasonable to give Mr. McLaughlin some guidance and Jake some insight?
Yes.
Okay. Yes,
Uh,
Charlie.
Thank you, sir. My only comment is I think the message has been well delivered on the market rates and the need for a limit. And I think the best approach on this, if this is still an open question, I think we've got to have Mr. Dewey's best proposal. He knows what you're looking for. It's his project, it's his cash flow, et cetera. Give us your best request and we will evaluate it, yes, up or down.
I thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. I understand that request. But I have a question for a fellow board member, Laura. So 2,900 is too high to keep it as the small a here. Do you have a general number that you think is what we should be looking at?
Well, right now it's probably, it's 2,000, which would be like 90% AMI. That's about 2,000, 2,100, something like that, which is probably market, especially considering that with solar, there won't be utilities or there'll be minimal utilities. So that's the rent that Mr. Dewey would be getting. And then I do a hold harmless. So if rents go down, typical, if rents go down, he still gets to, maintain the rents that are there. But those are all details we can work out. But I think right now, 90% AMI is about market.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if that, thank you, Laura, for sharing that. That's appreciated. So what are we actually doing? Yes, Sandy, thank you.
Sir, this is why I asked for more time. Literally this
Understood.
morning, an hour before this meeting, I went to Jillian and said, give me the tables with the rents at the AMI so we can all have time and not just put it on Laura to say, what are we comfortable with? Like, I wanted to be able to look at Jake's proposal and see Jake says $1,900. What is that with AMI? And we just haven't had the time to do it because we haven't had the information to do our own calculations.
Understood. I haven't even looked at any of it. So, obviously, we're not voting today. Whether there's merit in the discussion and the the vote that you've offered, Wendy. I don't know if it'll be seconded or not, but or whether Charlie McLaughlin has heard the discussion now and Jake has heard it and can proceed with that knowledge. And then we can continue to take it all under advisement as Andy has suggested as we move forward, you know, that'll be determined, I guess, by whether somebody seconds your, you know, what you've offered, Wendy. So,
I'd be happy with a consensus.
okay, you'd be good with a consensus.
Sure.
Is there a consensus that that discussion should be utilized by Charlie McLaughlin in the preparation of documents and discussion with Mr. Dewey? Laura?
Yeah, topics for discussion, yes.
Okay, so we're still open-ended there. Andy?
Yes.
All right, Mark?
Yes.
Wendy, you offered it, I assume, yes?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Yes, Mark Ells, proceed. All right, I hope that's helpful. I hope that the dialogue can result in us getting information, whether it's, you know, from Mr. Dewey or whether it's from our own staff, that we get it with enough time, so that we can, you know, provide, we can provide an answer to this application, a vote on this application. All right?
So can I guess I go back to Charlie here. So Charlie, do you have what you need to update the document, what the town's proposing? Because again, I just have felt like I've been throwing darts at a dartboard here, hoping it's answering the questions. But I mean, we tried to incorporate. It was put on my side to put everything out on the table, which I think we did, and we tried to incorporate that into the document today and through the past few days. But I feel like you just asked some questions that I can't answer. Only the board can answer, and I don't think you have answers to them to update the document. Or do you, if you feel you have the answers, then that's great.
Well, let me, Charlie, for my sake, as chair of the board, in my mind, one of, if not the main issue, one of the major issues, and obviously there's lots of detail that are critical as well, but for us to consider a $500,000 ask on this, the additional units need to be restricted in a way so that they remain affordable and are part of what we are investing into this project to make all of it affordable at different levels. And so if that isn't achievable through some mechanism that can be monitored, then this isn't a go. If it can be, then it's a go, and we read through the details to get to, you know, a yes. Am I misreading the major issue here?
No, you're
I
not.
mean, I guess I would defer to Charlie. Can we do that? Do you have a mechanism or a way you're going to propose to do that? Because I don't know how to do that. I'm totally willing to do it if you tell us what we need to do.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Thank you, sir. I think we've had those discussions informally with council present, and I think the message is very clear here. If there is an agreement on what the numbers are, or something that we can present to the board in terms of numbers and a mechanism to get there, then council and I can create a document, both in terms of the grant itself and the reflective document that needs to go on record at the registry that will be subject to your review, and particularly with Laura's expertise, the reporting requirements and so forth, and the enforceability requirements can be in front of you, and we can put this on record at the registry such that we have clear reporting requirements and clear sanctions if there isn't compliance. So it comes down to numbers, and again, I can't drive the developers' numbers. We've got to get their best proposal given these parameters, and we can have a robust discussion behind closed doors and whittle away at it. And if I see problems with what's being asked, I'll call them out. And ultimately, it's his proposal that you're considering, and we'll do our best to put something in writing to you that reflects his proposal accurately. And then it's up to you folks to decide whether or not you're content with the answers that he's provided. We'll figure a way to do it. No question between Bernie and myself. But the broader question is, what numbers work for the developer? What's he willing to do?
Thank you, Charlie. Laura, can I ask you a question if you put a different hat on?
Sure.
Do you have any models based on Mr. Dewey's question to us being our town attorney, our legal staff? Do you see any models out there statewide that might be something that would be helpful in this discussion?
Simple answer, no. There's there's restrictions, there's deed restrictions that you can put on, but as far as other mechanisms, I haven't seen it done. That doesn't mean it can't be done. I think it can be done with both the grant agreement, and in some cases, if CPA is doing 100% units, they don't always do a deed restriction. They usually do. They can do it in the grant agreement. So I guess in that case, yes. I think we can figure something out. I just would like to see it, tied up both in the tie and the grant agreement.
Okay.
And, anyway.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So Charlie and Bernie, you have your job cut out for you here. And Charlie, you made the commitment that you two would figure this out. So please get back to us in a timely manner so we can make a decision for Mr. Dewey.
Certainly will, sir.
Okay. Thank you all for your patience. At this point, we don't need a vote to continue this. This will be continued to the next meeting with ample notice. Okay? Jillian, you manage that for us. We're looking for get everything at least 48 hours behind unless it's like completely unanticipatable, and then we'll live with it. Well, I guess we'll have to live with it. Okay.
I would like to apologize to the board because I was not monitoring when that came through last night.
Yeah.
I should have gotten to. Sorry.
Yep. Yes, Andy, please.
Sir, just one more time. I disagree with Charlie that the numbers are what need worked on. I understand Jake's concern. I feel like the numbers are there. It's the mechanism for how to go. What legal mechanism do we use to lock in what's been presented? And Laura has said no. I haven't heard what that mechanism is. So I think it's great if Charlie and Bernie can work it out, but I don't think that we're looking to put the applicant through the ringer on sharpening his pencil. It's more about how do we guarantee what he has presented in his pro forma can be locked in.
Okay. I don't disagree. I don't.
Again, I agree with Andy. Like, I don't know, and I feel like that keeps getting put on me to come back with, and I don't know the answer to that. And I felt like, in the meetings we had in the last 2 weeks, Charlie sort of put it on me again too. It was sort of like, I don't know. I can give you my word that that's the intent, but I know that's not good enough. And so I'm not sure how we get there. And that's what, and now we're looking at an October meeting. Are we going to be there by then? I don't know.
Well, I think, for me as chair, I don't have enough information to vote on this, Jake.
No, I understand that.
So that's me, one. Number two, I think that, I've asked Ms. Schufelt to share, and certainly it's all that offer is always open to staff. But I asked her to share so that Mr. McLaughlin and Mr. Kilroy can have some insight into, another resource that how this might be done. There were some ideas there. So I guess Charlie and Bernie, you guys take those ideas, see where you can go with it, see if we can answer Andy's question, see if Jake can live with where that lands, and then we'll try to give you an answer, Jake, as soon as we have good information to make the decision, okay?
Elizabeth, if we do this, are we making them not market rate units then from a DHCD perspective for the tie?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's where we land on the percentage. We can go back and talk to the folks at DHCD about this approach and make sure we have that wrapped up. Just for the trust benefit, we do have that. He does have an active application. We have that subcommittee meeting with the council scheduled for next week on those percentages. So we have an opportunity within the next 7 days to sort of talk about that. Again, you know, rent control isn't legal, so our option is to find another way to restrict these units. You know, I would have thought the only way was a deed restriction. I think, you know, if Laura has an idea of how we can do that through the grant agreement, I do think that that's a, you know, an opening to hopefully find a resolution here. And I feel confident that if you give us a couple of weeks that that we can come up with something that works, hopefully, and try to make it align with the tide.
Mr. Kilroy, you had your hand up, sir.
Yes, I had a question. Is it the sense of the board that the AMI is the base, at least the starting point in terms of talking about restrictions on the other 13 units, or is that a movable target?
Laura, please.
I think the AMI is probably the easiest index to use moving forward. Otherwise, you're looking at, you know, a market study to, you know, to verify the market rents and then a discount off that. And that's just too time consuming and costly. I think the best index, I think, would be AMI. And what that number is, we can look at, but to me, that's probably the easiest one to use.
Any other board member comment on that? Seeing none. Mr. Kilroy, is that the extent of your question, sir?
Yeah, it does answer my question.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So I believe at this point, unless I'm incorrect, we're going to move this forward to the next meeting. I hope there's some clarity relevant to how this will proceed. And Jillian, keep us advised as we progress toward the next scheduled meeting if all information is available for us for review, okay?
Will do. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Thank you for that discussion. It's appreciated. All right, moving on. Topic number 3. Continued application, $50,000 pre-development funding to Nathan Hirschler for Bread and Roses to cover the due diligence, architectural, and pro forma investigation of renovating the second floor of mixed-use property at 296 to 302 Main Street on a 0.23 acre parcel to renovate the second floor of 298 Main Street to add 2 new affordable at 60% AMI 2-bedroom apartments. Okay, Mr. Hirschler, is there an update? And then, Elizabeth, please.
Town Manager Els, I'm going to recuse myself from assisting on this application.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Mr. Hirschler, is there an update relevant to your application for this? And then I'll go to board for discussion. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Els. Just a very brief update on the project. We do have the contract in place with Marianne Agresti, who's our architect at the moment, and they're currently actually in process of taking just revised measurements of the existing space so we can get that moving forward. I just want to clarify that we do have, we mentioned this in the last meeting as well, we do have 4 one-bedroom units that are market rate on the 298 currently. 1 studio apartment that's at market rate currently. And then the proposal is to address 2 vacant commercial spaces and convert them to residential. One of which is essentially completed already and it will likely require no trust construction funds, but will likely still require construction documents to be complete to make it a legal unit. The other one is a vacant space completely. It's just bones, just storage room, basically. And that will require both the pre-development funds and development funds. I don't have numbers yet. I do have quotes coming in for every aspect of the project, which will be able to be shared with you as soon as the construction documents are complete and sent over to those contractors for final estimates. So that is all on schedule. I'm guessing that the total cost is going to come in somewhere around $60,000 to $80,000 for that one unit, and whatever other remediation needs to happen for that second unit that's nearly complete. So my guess, although I don't want to commit to it at this stage, is that somewhere around $80,000 will be the final construction loan request, grant request from the Affordable Housing Trust. And then finally, we are also ready to go with Housing Assistance Corporation to be managing the 2 units in terms of the lotteries and everything else that comes on from there. So I think those were the questions that came out of last meeting. I'm happy to answer any additional thoughts that have come up.
Thank you, sir. Okay, just a quick question. Jillian, is the application complete? Was all information submitted within the application for the board to consider?
I believe we have everything other than what Nate just mentioned about the revision and the construction piece for the next part. So I guess that's, so what we have right now is the pre-development, the contracts for the professional services, that has all been provided. And so I do feel you're complete on that. So the application is looking for the money for those contracts, basically, to get into the next piece. It has nothing related to the construction at this point. Does that clarify? I'm sorry.
Yes, that answers the question. Thank you. All right, members of the board, do we have discussion? Laura?
I just want to clarify, the application is for $50,000.
Yeah, so it's a little, right, correct. For the pre-development application, it'll be a $50,000 application, and that'll cover all of the pre-construction documentation, all the stuff that's needed to get through site plan review at the town.
And you have contracts or quotes at least for that work?
Yes.
And a timeline?
Yeah, so essentially, as soon as we're ready to go, we have about 4 weeks left in terms as what the architect has said until construction documents are done. I would imagine 2 to 3 weeks before I have finalized updated quotes from all the contractors at that stage. But I think we're going to be pretty good to go, I would say, for starting construction in November, if we can move this together relatively quickly.
Okay, so if we approve this today, then the grant agreement or funding agreement would lay out the tasks and costs as as you get them for the $50,000 of the 80,000 or whatever that you have. Is that understood?
Yeah, I understand. You're saying to combine actually the two into one total. So I will have to amend in the next conversation for that, just because I expect the construction will cost more than $30,000, but mostly because of the hookup for water and the sprinkler installation, which are both going to be expensive. The construction for the rest of it is going to be relatively affordable.
Okay, thanks.
And yes, sir, Mr. McLaughlin. Thank you.
Just a question. I believe we talked about it at the last meeting. If you're inclined to go forward, what's the board's pleasure with respect to securing these funds against something that for any reason the project doesn't go forward, we can get our, if you will, soft cost recovered. What we've done historically on a couple of projects is to take a mortgage on a particular parcel in which there's sufficient equity to relying largely on the assessor's valuation to take a security position. And if the project goes forward, the obligation and obtains building occupancy certificates, then the structure would be that the grant is not returnable at that point. It vests in the developer, and it goes forward from there. So if that's the instruction to me, we can certainly accomplish that in terms of working with staff on the grant proposal, the grant agreement to the developer.
Yeah, so we certainly have enough equity in the building to be able to comfortably do that.
Good.
Okay, board members, further discussion? Okay, yes, Laura, please.
I'd move to approve $50,000 in a pre-development loan that could be forgivable once the occupancy permit or completion and documentation of affordability with the grant agreement or with a mortgage and lien for the construction period, with a grant agreement that lays out the tasks and costs that the trust would just disperse over the course of construction.
All right, do I have a second?
Second,
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, roll call vote. Laura Schufeld,
Yes.
Wendy Northcross,
yes.
Mark Milne,
Yes.
Andy Clyburn,
Yes.
Mark Ells, yes. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank
the
you very much,
application.
Mark, and all.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it and look forward to doing more business with you.
Okay, good luck.
Thanks. Bye now.
Yes, sir. Okay, moving on to topic number 4. These are planning and development updates. And I see Elizabeth Jenkins is rejoining us. So Director Jenkins, please.
Thank you, Town Manager Els. I did just want to provide the board a brief update that we are moving forward and working with CPC on the vote at the last meeting to request additional funds. So they have a deadline for that that Ms. Winiarski has helping us meet. And we'll keep the board apprised as that moves forward. Beyond that, we provided sort of an impromptu update to the council last night on updating our housing production plan and inclusionary affordable housing ordinance. And we will continue to come back to the trust as we move forward through those processes to either invite you to discussions at the housing committee or bring those to you directly for your feedback. Also, again, we did have a good discussion last night about the potential and the need for a rental assistance program. So I will work with Jillian on that going forward. It is something we've tossed around here a couple of times, and we have some great models out of the vineyard, for example, and come back to the trust to get more direction before we go too far on that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or discussion? Yes, Andy.
I
please.
would just ask at the next meeting that we have on the agenda that rental assistance program discussion.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right. Moving on to topic number 5, trust administrators updates. Jillian, please. You're muted. Muted.
Sorry. We have not really had the chance to discuss the additional tools and incentive options, so I guess that's ongoing. Needless to say, we've been a little focused on the projects and the instruments for that. So I think that will carry forward. I think Laura and I have had a brief conversation about bringing forward some criteria and standards for the monitoring agreements and the, just how we go forward with that. In progress. Hopefully we'll be able to bring you that in the future as well. But we don't have anything to present at the moment, nor do we have the time today. Let's see. I'm trying to remember the last item was the discussion about a revision to the NOFA in relation to what we just discussed with a rental assistance program. The current NOFA it's not for programs, it's for construction, development, and things like that. So we would need to do probably an expanded NOFA to include programs if we were soliciting for requests for funding of different programs.
Okay. Laura, you had your hand up? No?
I was just gonna say that wasn't on the agenda, so
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay.
okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Topics for future meeting agendas. Any ideas? I have a couple. I think I had brought one up last time, Jillian, for a discussion outside of a project type request. Do you have that in the minutes? Do you remember, or? I mean, I think that at some point, maybe annually, we should chat about what our expectations are on a per unit sort of investment. Because I do think Andy and I have these discussions more broadly, but things are costing a lot more than they did a few years ago. So I just want to make sure that we collectively feel as though if we have a ceiling, that it's one we, if we can, that we agree is appropriate. That's all. So somehow to, whether it be a combination of what we see statewide and what we see in our market and what reality is. And you know that project by project, there could be a different reality. So that's all. To have a meaningful discussion so that if that needs to be modified over time, we at least have that discussion separate from a project. That's all. I think it's important that it's not driven by a project. So, yeah. Okay, good. Andy, you had your hand up, sir.
Yes, sir. I was just going to follow up. If we could also have legal input on that, because we are using CPC funds. It's still not completely clear to me. We have a lot of discussion about we can only spend these funds on affordable. What exactly does that mean? We start talking about, cost per unit. I understand that, but do we really have flexibility? Is it 100% AMI? We talk big A, little a, and it's still not clear to me legally what are the four corners around what we can fund when a project does come in. And I think having a discussion, to Mark's point, outside of a project-driven discussion would be a good thing for the trust.
Great. Yes, Jillian.
So for clarification, that's sort of policy and guideline discussion. Is that how you want to frame that on the agenda? Is that okay? Thank you.
All right. My second topic for future discussion is, and it's my belief, and I think Laura and I chatted about this a while ago. I think they put the town manager on the housing trust, and chair the housing trust, so that the priorities of our community and the priorities of the trust align. I really think that was intentional. And so from time to time, at least annually, Jillian, I really think it's important that we look at the council guidance in housing. And I know Elizabeth, a lot of this will reside in a practical sense with what Elizabeth does day to day. But I do believe even beyond that, we may need to have council in, or we may need to go before council to make sure that we are aligned, so that as we go forward with our efforts, and obviously something like a CPC request is certainly a big part of something our town council would have to approve, so that we would have future resources to be able to continue to administer as a board. So I want to make sure we're aligned. And I think that was the intent, and maybe I'm wrong, but that's been what I've envisioned since I was assistant town manager and now town manager. So, if we could further that discussion, Jillian, in a meaningful way, certainly you can put a little thought into it and chat with others. And I don't know if Laura, I thought you and I had that conversation, because I think when I first came on, you said to me that it isn't always the town manager that chairs the Affordable Housing Trust. And I was like, oh, okay. And I went back and looked at it, and then came back with the conclusion I've shared with you. Okay, so yes, Laura and then Andy.
So for another, discussion for the trust, and it would ultimately be, I think it would be town council that would have to change it, but, I would like to expand the board, to include more housing folks. I think it's, I don't think that we can have, as robust a discussion about some of these issues, with, one or two people being, the, knowledgeable about, the, the parameters of affordable housing and the needs, and, I try and share, but, you're also taking my word for it. So, I think I would like to look at expanding, probably by 2 members. Anyway, so
Okay, Andy,
a discussion of that.
thank you, Laura.
Sure. I had as another possible topic, maybe not at the next meeting, but at a future meeting. Elizabeth, last night at town council, you had alluded to a possible joint meeting. Could you fill us in on what that was about?
I mean, certainly that, I toss that back to the chairs and how you want to proceed, but, we want to make sure, that to the point the town manager just made, that we are aligning, our community needs and priorities with our council priorities, with our programs, that we're administering. And so, a major recommendation that has been in our housing production plan for years is to try to get our boards to collaborate and to talk to each other on a semi-regular basis to line these things up. So, again, I think there's a great opportunity to put the energy of the housing committee together with the trust, and again, some other members of our community who have contributed to our housing production plan, in a way to make sure that as we are in a moment where we're going to sort of establish our work plan relative to affordable housing for the next however many years, that we're bringing all of those voices and priorities together in one place.
So it was a presentation of the housing production plan, correct? That you were
Well,
considering.
certainly that's what that achieves, or that's what I would like to see that document achieve, is again, really to set out a realistic work plan and expectations that meet our community needs relative to affordable housing for the next 5 years. So to that end, the trust plays a major role, and the housing committee certainly plays a role in terms of advocacy and making recommendations to the council. So I think it would be a great opportunity to be able, again, to have that discussion as a group.
Okay. So Jillian, if I might, well, first of all, any further comment or suggestion by board members?
No,
Okay.
but I have
Go ahead.
to get into Hyannis, so may have to leave.
Okay,
Meeting.
I'm gonna be real quick. Jillian, can you look into what it would take for the board to consider moving forward with 2 more members? As asked, so that, certainly the details of what it would take for that, it could be a simple explanation. And then brief us on it at our next meeting under your trust administrator updates.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep. Okay.
Question,
Yeah.
just with the housing production plan, would it help you all to see the draft strategies? And I guess, I don't know, Elizabeth, do you feel comfortable with sort of, should we share that out at this point so that
We'll make
everybody can take them?
recommendations on that, Jillian, going forward as we work to update those.
Thank you.
So we'll leave that under topic 4 for Elizabeth Jenkins to bring forward to us when it's ready. Is that correct? Thank you. Okay, good. Okay, moving on to topic number 7. Matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I have none. Do any board members have any? Seeing none. Next meeting is tentatively scheduled for 9 AM on October 6th, 2023. Wendy, please.
So I have a conflict with that date. I may be able to be there for the first 10 or 15 minutes. But I just want to let you know in case there's votes that would be required.
Thank you. Andy.
I also have a conflict. I am not available that day, sir.
Okay, Jillian. So, either the Friday before or the Friday after. You know, I'll leave it to people's schedules to determine which one might work more adequately. No, Wendy?
So I'll be in Washington DC the Friday before. The Friday of, unless it was like later, much later in the day, the museum is having a major visioning project workshop. So I could do the week after or later in the day on October 6th. Or give me some other dates.
Laura, please.
Yeah, I'm not available on the 6th either. The 13th would work for me. The one before is, I could probably make it work later.
So I'm going to direct Jillian to reschedule the next meeting to a tentative date of 9 AM, Friday, October 13th. Finally, seeing no other topics for discussion, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Second. Okay. Roll call vote. Laura Schufeld,
Yes.
Wendy Northcross,
Yes.
Mark Mel,
Yes.
Andy Clyburn,
yes.
Mark Ellis, yes. Thank you all. Great discussion. Appreciate it.